annoying. But I guess there's no easy way. There's no perfect way to do it. Yeah. Yeah, I wish you could specify things like, I want to continue to follow this person, but I only want to see like one post from them a day or something.
I don't remember. Maybe it was Facebook. There was a site. It could have been Twitter. One of them actually lets you set how frequent you see posts from people.
Oh, yeah.
It's like in the, the extra options.
This Clara girl, I didn't want to, but I just unfollowed her because she posts 30 times a day, 40. I did like ridiculous. Like she's using it as her job, basically. Because she's like a premium user, so you have to pay to see all of her posts. Mm-hmm. But you even see the ones that you can't see. That's really cool. It says, so you see the post, and then it says
you see like a preview of the post. Like, yeah. Well, of course they want you to have a preview of the post. No. They want you to know that you're missing out on something.
I know.
Yeah. No, Twitter actually used to have it good, I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago, back when they first started forcing the like algorithm timeline on people. They had a toggle, so you could actually either have the feed filtered or just in direct order. You could toggle between. I always went to the direct order for a while, but even right before they got rid of the unfiltered timeline, I started using the filtered one because I had just gotten to the point that I was following so many people and vice versa that it just became unmanageable. Like, you don't even have to be big. Once you get over 100 people, if like those 100 people are active, it's just, there's no way you can filter through everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm following like 600 people on Twitter.
Yeah.
So it even takes a long time for me to go through and unfollow people that I realize I don't really need to be following anymore. So here's an interesting list of top 10 Apple Arcade games. Guess what's in there?
Fantasian,
of course.
Yeah.
And Shantae and the Seven Siren. Also a good one.
That is
although not very good on mobile, I have to say. It's so much better on the Switch.
Well, it's probably not bad if you have like the strongest mobile phones, because there are some phones, mostly Android because it's like an open source base, but that are specifically made for games. But then the only way to get the most out of it is you have to be playing like an NVIDIA Shield. That's pretty much like the only way to really do it. And at that point, why aren't you PC gaming?
Exactly. Well, here's a question, because there's so many games that do not support controllers. Does Shantae and the Seven Sirens support controllers? And
I would assume so. Other versions of the games that do.
It doesn't look like it does.
I don't know why you would just take that out of the mobile version.
Well, it was mobile first. This came out on mobile before any
I don't think they made it mobile first and then like re-engineered it to be able to use controller for the console. They probably programmed it with controller capability from the get-go and then just disabled it for the mobile version when they first put it out. That would seem so much easier than the other way around.
Maybe, but I'm telling you, I look at Fantasian and it says controller supported, and I love
No, I'm not saying it's not doing it
on mobile.
Like, I completely believe you. I'm just saying, like, from this probably makes sense to you too, from a programming aspect. It makes no sense that you would program it without controller support and then have to go back in and add it for the ports, than just to already program it with controller support and then disable it for mobile when you put it out first. Like, that latter one sounds so much easier to do.
I don't know. It's not that hard to add controller support. But on the mobile
the ladder's
version,
also just like a Switch.
Yeah, but see, on the mobile version, you would have to add code to disable the or hide the on-screen controls. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's dumb. It's easy. All of it's easy. Everything you just described. Adding controller support, removing it, removing the on-screen control. It's all very, very easy compared to programming the rest of the game.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure. Simple. Yeah. I'm not even trying to compare that to programming the rest of the fucking game.
Yeah. So I can't even understand why.
Yeah.
Because it says now, like if you look at Fantasian, it says controller supported, and Shantae doesn't. And I've tried playing it on mobile, and it sucks.
I hate playing most things on mobile. Like, I think the only game that didn't frustrate me with, like, modern controls on mobile, because old emulated games usually run just fine. That's no issue. But, like, Genshin Impact is probably the only one that didn't frustrate me. Like, its controls were actually pretty smooth for what it was trying to do. But then, like, why would I ever want to play that on a phone over the computer? I eventually uninstalled it from my phone.
Yeah, when it first came out, I didn't have a device that could play it. I actually tried on my iPad, but my iPad's so freaking old that it wouldn't even run it. So.
I think I only installed it on my phone because my phone knew enough that it runs it no problem. Just because the idea that it was almost like the Switch, but instead of doing it with one device, I just was doing it with two. It's like, oh, if I want to continue playing, I can just switch over to my phone and it continues the same account.
Yeah.
Now I don't even play the game. They're adding so much new content and stuff, but it's like when the game first came out, they gave you so many characters for free to be able to get through the main campaign. Yeah. But that really only helped you get through the first two areas. Now that they're adding other stuff, they don't give you any, like, non-rare characters in the game anymore. And it is just... It's gone full gacha, and it's annoying, and the new content hasn't been that good, and it's like, there's no point in me playing this game. I got my enjoyment out of it.
Well,
speaking of
we're live.
Yes, we are live. Welcome to the Vomitorium Weekday show for the 7th of September, 2021. As always, I'm your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. How you doing today?
Just great. Thanks.
How do you feel? Oh, I was going to ask you something that would be pertinent to your interests. How do you feel knowing that there probably won't be any more updates to Stardew Valley?
Oh, I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah. Or at least no content updates. There might be a balance thing here and there, but...
Yeah, bug fixes and stuff.
Yeah.
Honestly...
Probably gotten more than enough already.
I know, it's like the guy has totally gone above and beyond. I thought I would kick off with a small tip in case... Just...
Get the ball rolling.
Yeah, get the ball rolling. Yeah. But, I wonder if that means he's going to work on a sequel or some other game.
Well, that's precisely what we're getting at. So Eric, is it Baronet? I don't know how his last name is pronounced, but Concerned Ape, right? Eric over here, says he just doesn't know if the game will receive any other updates, which usually when somebody says that, it's like if there's a bug that needs to be fixed, they'll go in and fix the bug, but that's probably it.
Yeah.
Because he needs to focus on the next game that he's working on. Don't know if it's directly related to Stardew, if, he's been working on this type of game for so long, he just wants to go in some other direction of his interest, but he is looking at future projects, so.
Well, it's done such a great job with the modding community.
Yeah.
That, if you want updates, if you want new content, go to Nexus Mods. There's a whole expanded... if you've played through the game and you're sick of it, there's a whole second quest that you can download from Nexus Mods where it adds characters, it adds quests, it adds, I think it's called Stardew Expanded or something like that.
And what we do know, we don't know much about what he's going to be working on, but he has hinted that it will be another pixel game. and it will have a top-down perspective similar to Stardew Valley. And in some ways, it's kind of similar to Stardew, but it's not a farming game. It's something different. That's all he said on it.
Okay. I wonder if it's going to be something that involves some farming, but also has other adventure aspects.
Like Rune Factory Stardew Valley.
Yeah. Or there's a game that I recently added to my wish list. I don't I don't know if I'm ever going to buy it, but where is it? Kataria Fables. Have you heard of that?
No, that does not sound familiar at all.
It looks cool. It says it's an action adventure fused with RPG and farming elements. So it looks kind of like a cross between Stardew Valley and like Cat Quest or something.
Yeah,
because you play as a cat or a mouse or something. I don't know if you've ever played Cat Quest, but something like that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know if any farming will be involved whatsoever, though. Just based on what he was saying, like, if you're gonna do anything involving farming, you might as well just make a sequel to Stardew, right?
Yeah, because I mean, Stardew has adventure elements. You could do it that focuses more on that if you wanted to.
You know what I want of a game? Just, it would be pretty hard to make, not because of like difficulty programming or anything, but because the amount of assets and memory that you'd have to dedicate for it to actually do what I want it to do. But I kind of want like the opposite of a homestead game, right? Because that's what you could basically say about these farming games. They're a homestead game. You have your plot of land and you're trying to become successful. I want the opposite of that. I want a game where you're just like a nomadic tribe trying to become successful in that same type of way. Almost like an Oregon Trail game, but without a destination.
Mm-hmm.
But with like all these modern stuff added to like these type of games. Like I would love a game where you're just a nomad doing this type of stuff.
Yeah, there was a game, a mobile game, that you kind of reminded me of, but I can't remember. I feel like it was called something like Puzzle Quest or something. It was similar to that. It was like you can build up sort of a farm area, and then you move on to the next one. And you can get, resources and stuff from the old farms to the new, and then you can, you continue to expand out and out. I can't remember if it's called Puzzle Quest or something like that, because
there'd be a lot of stuff you'd have to think about, right? Like more practical than vegetation, because mostly if you're not buying it like through trade, you're probably foraging for most of your vegetation if you're a nomad. But you would be raising cattle, and that'd be something that you'd have to be concerned with, like the train of cattle that you take with you and keeping them alive so that, they can breed, and you could also eat them after they've done their breeding and everything. Like there'd be a lot of resources that you'd have to think of. I think it'd be a resource management game, and it would be like a relationship management game, because the NPCs or the other characters would be a valuable resource that you'd have to manage. Because if you got stuck by yourself, you'd probably be fucked.
Yeah. Lords of the Realm is like that too, a little bit. It's more a conquest, but you have to manage cattle and mining and armies and things like that.
Yeah, I want more games like that. But I want them done in this kind of like happy-go-lucky way that games like Stardew Valley's done in.
Yeah. Yeah, Lords of the Realm is not happy-go-lucky. It's mostly building up armies and conquering people.
Like, I don't even care if the game is gypsy propaganda, giving people a false idea of what gypsies are like, as long as the game is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Gypsies are horrible people, by the way.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm constantly on the lookout for like the perfect the perfect game with all of these elements that we're talking
Yeah.
about just meshed together perfectly, and it hasn't existed yet.
Yeah, sometimes you're just thinking to yourself, like, am I gonna have to fucking make it? Is that the only way I'm gonna get this game?
Well, I don't. Yeah, and I'd be afraid. Like if I made it, I don't think it would be perfect either.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you just have to enjoy the various different versions that are none of which are going to be perfect.
I don't want perfect games. I want games that have enough of what I'm looking for. But I'm also constantly looking for different things, so I have like groupings of things I would like to see together and experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that Nomadic game is kind of one of them. I want a detective noir beat 'em up game that is open world with causing you to go back and forth across the map looking for clues and stuff. That would be a very fun game that I've never seen anybody do.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a whole list of things like I just want to see this done.
Well, we started on a game that was going to be that, wasn't it? Sort of.
Well, kind of. It was going to be a detective-based game, but it was going to be closer to like a point-and-click adventure than anything. Not like a beat-em-up game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! I just ran across a story about a completely useless update to World of Warcraft, where they're removing any references to sacks and hose.
That is pretty
Apparently,
pretty useless. Hose, I get. I'm somehow missing the connection for sacks. Is there some like slang I'm missing on, or?
I guess it's a reference to a scrotum. I guess.
That's where my mind went, but that's kind of a stretch.
Yeah. There was an achievement called "My Sack is Gigantique," and they're changing it to "My Storage is Gigantique." I guess it was
they got
a
to ruin
sexual
fun.
joke.
Well, that one clearly, like that's not even a stretch. That's clearly supposed to be an innuendo. They just don't want people having fun.
And then what? I guess this is like a Christmas quest called "Bros Before Ho Ho Ho's."
No, that's a great name for a quest.
I know, or achievement or whatever. They're retitling it "Holiday Bromance." Yeah,
that just sounds gay.
Not allowed anymore. Yeah,
like I always laughed when the term was used for like say JD and Turk and Scrubs or whatever, but like a bromance is the gayest fucking term you could use to refer to like a guy's relationship with another guy. Right? It's like a dude trying to constantly say no homo, no homo, no homo while he's jerking his friend off. That's what it sounds like, you know? It's like, no, she's a bro. She's a bro. There's no homo. Like,
it's a bromance.
It's the bromance. It's fucking gay as shit. And you know what? I think the term actually probably was originally made between guys. I wouldn't doubt it, because I don't know how often you've been in a room of just guys, but guys can get pretty gay even when they're not being like actually physically gay with each other. But like most of the time when I hear it, it's women using the word, and it often comes up in their fan fictions, and it gets really gross really fast.
Yeah, it was probably originally coined as an insult, right?
Yeah, probably. I would assume so.
No.
If I was going to use that term for anything, I'd be using it as an insult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Except in the case of Scrubs. JD and Turk's relationship is pure. Ego.
Indeed. That show is pretty gay.
It is a gay show, but that's actually kind of what makes that show pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. God, why? Like, Blizzard is already shooting themselves in the foot consecutively for the last 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Why the fuck are they doing this shit? Like, what do they think they're gaining out of it?
I don't know, but I mean, I think regular people are just going to be like, see updates like this and be like, okay, this game is just completely jumped the shark. Like, okay, if you're going to be policing your own stupid jokes like this, like it's not, you're not concentrating on the fun anymore. You're concentrating on this dumb shit. So
yeah,
they're just going to keep bleeding. I watched a video of some guy who was just like analyzing in an unbiased way actual statistics from World of Warcraft, and it seems like it's really dying. Like, the guy was actually surprised. He's like, wow, when you look at this, it's like, it looks really bad.
Oh yeah, they're bleeding out.
So, oh well.
Yeah,
that's a shame.
Fuck them. That's all I like to say.
That's
Fuck
right.
them.
It's led to a bit of a new renaissance, though, of online MMORPGs and that are trying different things. Because for a while, all of the MMORPGs were just Warcraft clones, and now I think it's led to a bunch of
with like a couple exceptions, right?
Things.
Like Final Fantasy's always been doing something different. They've been like one of the few peoples on the market that have been around for a while, if you even go back to 11, where they're like, we're not trying to be World of Warcraft. There's a couple other examples, but yeah, vast majority of them. Like, you look at like a lot of the super popular. Oh, well, Ember's going to be cool, but I'm going to go like going back to the past. Rift was a WoW clone. Lord of the Rings Online was literally a WoW clone, but with Lord of the Rings characters. It's like, you can name probably like the top 10 games between 2008 and 2012. And aside from Final Fantasy being one of them, most of them were probably WoW clones.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's good that people are, once they realize that WoW is not sort of the be-all, end-all, and that you can make games that are slightly different and still be successful now, people are trying different things.
Yeah. It's kind of been going that way for a while, right? Like,
Yeah.
I remember when people were trying to get away with that, get away from that. I think one of the first ones was like the City of Heroes, but even that, like, you could argue in some ways was just a variation of WoW. It just did a lot of things different to the point that more people were trying to copy off of City of Heroes than WoW itself. But you get like a lot of more active games too, like Terra was one of them, Raiders and stuff like that. Phantasy Star comes up in like 2014 to do something completely different. Like there were a lot of people trying different things that even got fairly popular, but over and over again, because WoW already has the consumer base and they just put out like a new expansion, people just keep going back to it. And I'd like to see them finally just get thrown into the dirt where they belong.
Yeah. They've run their course. They need to just die out.
Yeah, they ran their course a long time ago. That's the problem. Like, I think, I'm going to be honest, it was almost dying a little bit before that, and it got a deserved surge in the last good expansion, but the last good expansion was Mists of Pandaria. Like, there was no point playing the game after that.
Yeah. And they keep doing the same thing with, introducing all of these crap new elements that everybody complains about from the beta. I mean, if they try it out in the beta and they're like, well, this is shit, this is how you need to fix it, and they don't listen to them. And then a year later, they come out with a minor update, and then it's all fixed. But it's like, okay, great, but you're going to do the same thing again and again and again. So.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah. A lot of things are stupid. But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
At least when it comes to MMOs, there's always Final Fantasy.
True.
The well-deserved better than World of Warcraft. I've been playing it a lot recently when I have time. So not really a lot. Like, I'll play it for an hour or two here or there. I think I played it for a total of 3.5 hours over the last week because that's the only amount of time that I could even allot myself to playing it. But I've been enjoying it. I'm actually glad going back through. Apparently, in the new one, the Shadowbringers, right? Or whatever, if you finish Shadowbringers, you can unlock New Game Plus in an MMO, where basically it lets you go back in a mission mode to replay the story events on a harder difficulty with your like maxed out character for better rewards.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I'm like, that's the first time I've ever heard of an MMO giving you New Game Plus. Normally, if you want to play, they're like, start a new character.
Yeah. So what's the maximum level in that game?
At the moment, I don't know. Let me see.
Because I know you can get up to level 60 for free.
Yes. It's a Final
Although
Fantasy.
be careful because your account can apparently be deleted at a moment's notice.
80
if
currently.
you're on free. Oh, really? Wow.
Yes.
So, what's the difference between 60 and 80? I guess there's a lot of
have you ever played a Final Fantasy game? What's the difference between 60 and 80?
I guess quite a bit. Like half
Yeah,
the game.
yeah. It is a huge difference. I do think they're at least planning on getting to 99, which is why they've been kind of like stretching out when the levels get up there. I wouldn't be surprised if they plan on going to 120 the way that Final Fantasy's been going lately. Most of their mobile games characters, you can limit break them to 120. Final Fantasy 15, you can get the characters up to 120. Which I thought was fucking ridiculous. But speaking of, somebody who has been desperately working on Final Fantasy 14 has come out and said that that's not all he's working on. So the acclaimed Final Fantasy producer, Yoshi P, also known as Naoki Yoshida, Yoshida-san, has been working on Final Fantasy 16 with the utmost care. Yeah. Yoshida's kind of like the main guy who actually runs 14 as a department. Because, you know, you have like Tetsuya Nomura who runs all of the Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts departments because they're kind of a shared department. But he doesn't run each of the individual games. Yoshida's the one who actually handles the MMO end. But 16's not an MMO. It's a single-player game, and I guess from what it says, Yoshida's also the guy who is producing 16 personally. And he is currently working on the title, and he's being very careful about it. He even said in an interview with Famitsu, which for people who don't know, Famitsu is like the biggest like fan magazine, like the geek culture type magazine that people read over in Japan. They still print and produce this magazine. It's kind of like how I think the only magazine you can find anymore is Game Informer over here, and that's just because of their deal with GameStop. They're owned by the same company. Yeah. But like Famitsu's regularly bought by people, and they also have an internet version of their website where they put up interviews. And he says that he sometimes sees on social media comments like, Yoshida is working on Final Fantasy 16, so he's too busy and is hands off with 14. And this is absolutely not true. I'm desperately working on it, so I hope you'll stick with me from here on out. So this guy seems like he's trying to juggle a little too much. But I don't know. I didn't know Yoshida was on it, so I have a little bit more interest in 16. The game style still doesn't seem like a Final Fantasy game, but maybe I'll check it out.
Is it kind of like along the lines of Final Fantasy VII Remake and 15?
It's hard to tell because they haven't
Sort of
shown a
thing?
lot of gameplay. Very few, like, so we're looking at snippets of it, but it does seem like an action-based game. So if it's not like 15, it actually might even be more like Final Fantasy Origin. It kind of looked like a Witcher or Dark Souls-esque game.
Mm-hmm.
Leaning more towards The Witcher. But it was like the single guy was facing down an opponent that he was like locked on at the same time, and it looked like he was like dodging a move to attack, similar that you would see in a game like Dark Souls or whatever.
Are these trailers? Oh yeah, it's from PlayStation. So
Yeah.
You want me to put the trailer on the screen?
Oh,
I didn't realize there was a trailer.
Yeah, it was revealed in the PS5 showcase around this time last year.
Yeah. I had no idea there was a Final Fantasy 16 trailer. I didn't know that they were like well into development. I know it's been like 5 years, I guess, since 15. Is he gonna be going after Chaos?
No.
Chaos.
Honestly, Origin, which is a spin-off game, so I'm fine with it having a different combat style. Looks far more interesting than this. It does have a lot of that like really, really old school Final Fantasy aesthetic. Like the beginning of the trailer, you already see chocobos. I remember seeing some Moogles. You see like espers and giants and stuff like that. Like there's a Shiva. Titan was just right there. The initial trailer also had like Ifrit. I think Phoenix was seen because he has something to do with the story of the main character. Because the main character is like a vessel or something.
Very feminine looking boys.
Yeah. Very, very Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
But it's got like that really old school medieval look that Final Fantasy had for the most part up until, I want to say 6. I mean, some of it was still there into 6. And a lot of the sci-fi stuff was even there as early as the first game with the airships, but like the mechanized airships came in 2. So we were already getting like mechanical looking things then. And even there was a freaking war mech was in the first game.
Yeah.
But it still widely had this like medieval feeling as opposed to when we get to 6, we're starting to see like cities with skyscrapers and stuff like that in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see the combat here.
Like, in 7, there's like helicopters and like in a modern looking city or a futuristic actually looking city.
But like this combat very very much looks like 15's, but it seems a little more single focus. Actually, somewhat reminds me of like maybe Devil May Cry as a game, which is what I was saying about Origins. So I wouldn't even be surprised if the games are made in the same engine and they're going to play very similarly to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, how is this a Final Fantasy game? I mean, it looks cool, but I don't know if it looks
aesthetically looks like a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, I guess.
There's a Freet.
Legacy of the Crystals. There's crystals.
And there's
it's Final Fantasy when there's crystals.
It was kind of like my complaints with 15, right? Because some people were trying to say 15 doesn't look like a Final Fantasy game. It's like, no. I played through all of 15. Everything about it aesthetically is Final Fantasy. Right? Like, it screams Final Fantasy in aesthetics. The problem is, if it wasn't for the aesthetics, you would never know it was a Final Fantasy game. And that's what it's starting to look like here, right? If you were to replace the chocobos with, say, raptors, if you were to replace the espers with some other random gods, if you were to take the actual images of Final Fantasy out of it, what about this game makes it Final Fantasy?
Yeah. Nothing, that's why.
Yeah.
Console exclusive. Ugh, does that mean I have to get a
Yeah.
PlayStation 5? Damn it.
It's probably temporary. Final Fantasy 15 was said to be a console exclusive at first. And then it eventually came out with the Royal Edition, which was on Xbox as well. And then the Windows Edition, which is just the computer upgraded version of the Royal Edition. So it'll probably be a timed exclusive. Square doesn't like leaving money on the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess Final Fantasy 15 was a PS4 exclusive originally.
I believe so, yeah. Because the Royal Edition came out with more stuff, and it was available on Xbox. And then there is the Windows Edition, too, which is just Royal Edition, plus, like, mods and stuff. That's a cool thing. You can mod Final Fantasy 15. It has a mod, like, curator built into the game.
Mm-hmm. Well, Final Fantasy IV Pixel Remaster comes out tomorrow. In case you care.
I'm waiting for somebody to mod those games to where they, like, increase the sprite ratio so it fills in the empty space.
Yeah, that would be nice.
And it'd be an easy mod, too. Like, honestly, it wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, at least there's, you have to do it manually, but there's an easy way to mod the font so that it looks better, so that it fills out the screen better. It's weird though. You replace the English font with the Japanese version, and it somehow just works better. I guess it still shows the English characters, but just in the Japanese font, and it looks great.
Yeah.
At least in 1, 2, and 3.
You know why they have that too, right? Like a different font for English in Japanese.
Because the number of characters.
No.
In a given word.
The reason for that is because there are a lot of people who speak English and Japanese, especially because of schools and stuff. But our letters are very different from theirs, like even picking up visually. So there is a set of fonts, a family of fonts, that make English letters easier to distinguish from each other to people who don't speak English, like people who come from Asian areas that are used to reading like calligraphy and stuff like that. So that's why they even have a different font. It's like it distinguishes like the T further from the F and stuff like that, or from the J and I, and it's easy to distinguish every single letter. It's very similar to fonts they have for like dyslexic people that help them further distinguish letters and read words right.
Yeah, the Japanese version is wider. Every letter is wider, which is it works so much better with that. I don't understand why they don't use that font, because the English by default in the Pixel remasters is so thin, and it looks bad. Yeah.
Well, like, so they assume the thinner letters for people who are native English speakers and readers will help you speed up reading. Like instead of like spreading everything wide, they're assuming the tighter like congestion of the words. Since you're used to reading it and won't mistake the letters for the most part, we'll just let you zoom through and read it faster. Which to some degree is true. Because even just looking at the sprites of letters over here in older games, they are pretty congested. And I'm really good at reading video game text on screen to where like it takes me a second to read through a text box. I remember one time my mom walked in and I was just like, next. It's like, there's no way you're reading that. And then I repeated her like everything the last 5 boxes said. And she just like shut up and walked out of the room. It's like, yeah, if you play games, you get used to reading it at a fast pace. Yeah. But that's the reason why they do those congested letters. They just assume for English readers, it makes it easier to get through the boxes.
I guess so. I don't think.
But I agree, it doesn't look as nice if it doesn't fill up the box.
Yeah. I'm not sure that thinner letters are faster. You can read them faster than fat.
No, it's not about the fact that thinner letters. It's that the words are more congested, so they can fit more per line.
Yeah.
right? So
guess.
like, if you see a congested word, your mind recognizes patterns, right? So you can see this, but you're not reading out THIS like in your head. You're seeing the word this together. And this is the actual psychological thing about congested fonts, is that it actually makes you easier to pick up the patterns and you speed through sentences faster. But a Japanese speaker who's not as good as like reading English actually has to read every single letter in the word to know what word they are. Now they can still read it fast, but when they read the word this, they are actually reading THIS to recognize that it's that word. Yeah.
Right.
And I know because it's the same way for me when I'm trying to read Japanese. I don't read Japanese very well. I do recognize quite a few of the characters though. But like when I'm looking at a word, my brain doesn't instantly recognize that these three symbols together are a word. I have to look at the three symbols and put them together as like, oh, okay, that's the word I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, anyway.
And these because a lot of people don't actually sit there and think about like how they read.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of something you do. Like people read differently. Some people read like one word at a time. Some people read like a line at a time. And some people can actually just glance at a paragraph. And then just kind of like scan it and like, oh, I just read that whole paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nuts, actually.
Well, there's an interesting new game-breaking bug discovered in Breath of the Wild.
Oh, is there now?
Yeah. Where apparently you can get Link to fly.
Hmm.
By picking up a barrel? That's weird. I'm not entirely sure how this works. But just over the weekend, this new sky gliding bug was discovered that I imagine is going to make speedruns very interesting very soon.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like you can somehow manage to pick up a barrel in a weird way that lets Link just move in any direction.
That's kind of cool.
It's kind of bizarre. Yeah. It's crazy. I always watch. Have you ever seen Medi333 on YouTube?
No.
He's probably one of the biggest like Breath of the Wild YouTubers out there. Like he still does new Breath of the Wild things every week.
That's probably why I've never seen it, because I don't really watch Breath of the Wild YouTubers or anything like that.
Yeah, like he came up with, you know, the exploit where you put a minecart on another minecart, and then you can lift them up into the sky and get like to the ceiling. He actually came up with that exploit and sort of perfected it, and then managed to get like start on one side of Hyrule, go all the way up to the invisible ceiling, and then paraglide all the way across Hyrule. So he's done lots of it. So he's always doing new exploits. I can't believe that after 4 years they're still coming up with new exploits.
I can. I mean, look. After 20 years, people are still figuring out things about the mechanics of Super Smash Bros. Melee. And it doesn't surprise me that a game that Nintendo made would have enough weird spaghetti to its code that people are still finding exploits in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. It's too funny. Yeah,
I just remember when it made it already easy enough, because like it's pretty difficult, I guess, to make it to Eventide Island the first time. Because, like, you can do it the easy way, I guess, if you have enough stamina to just glide there once you get to that part. The hard way, which is technically the easier way, but the long one of getting a Deku Leaf and blowing a ship all the way there, but that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Or the super easy way, once they figured out the exploits, where it is picking up one of the metal chests in the water and pushing against the back of the boat to just propel you like a motorboat over there. That was the coolest exploit I remember at that time. It's like, oh, I can have a motorboat? Teach me your ways, Magnetic
awesome.
Man.
Yeah, it's funny how they made it so that you can't pull or push anything that you're standing on, like if you're standing on a metal block, but you can pull or push something that's touching the thing that you're standing on. So, yeah.
Which will have physics interactions with the game.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense, but somehow, yeah, you can pull on a chest that's behind the raft that you're standing on, and it somehow pushes you forward.
Yeah. Motorboat.
So. I think it would probably be way too complicated to code that out of the game to like figure out what the physics are, that it's, what thing that it's pushing on and whether you're standing on that and all that.
And even if it wasn't, who would think about that? Most people didn't even think that could be a possibility. Some person probably randomly discovered it by trying funky interactions with stuff, as people do. As a designer, who would think that somebody would ever try that, or that would be an interaction you'd have to worry about? Like, how would that ever cross your mind? This is why I think speedrunners should be hired as, like, game testers.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, like if you want to find out what's going to break the game, hire speedrunner. They'll figure it out before the game ever hits shelves.
Mm-hmm. They probably don't care to, because like I said, I can imagine that would be incredibly difficult to code out of the game.
Well, I still think they should hire speedrunners for this reason particularly, right? Because speedrunners are so good at finding glitches and stuff, but I think most game programmers understand that a certain degree glitches can be fun, as long as they're beneficial glitches, right? And there's some beneficial glitches you don't want in the game because it might ruin the level of challenge in the game or something. But if something's quirky and interesting and maybe lets you skip something and you don't mind, you're like, okay, that's a fun thing that only a few people will ever stumble upon. I think that's fine, because they'll point out also the game-breaking things at the same time, and you'll get a pretty good even-handed response of the speedrunner will tell you which glitches are fun and you should probably leave in the game as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think they should just be looking at this community that exists as potential hires for their bug testing departments, because these people would be great at it. A lot of them are autistic as fuck.
Well, I think they practically do that already. They just do it after the game's released.
Yeah, but they need to do that before the game is released.
Yeah.
I understand we can patch anything now, but come on, have some standards.
Yeah. I thought it was funny that they mentioned in Metroid Dread that there were essentially ways to, what do they call it? Sequence break?
Yeah.
To get to certain areas that you're not supposed to get to. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I wonder whether it really is that they found a glitch that they're just going to leave in, or if it's just going to be like...
Yeah, because we went over this.
Difficult, but not impossible if you use a certain technique to get through.
Yeah, because if it's not a bug, like something that wasn't intended, but they found it and decided to leave it in, then all it is an alternate route. It's not really sequence breaking. Yeah.
But I noticed, I don't know if I knew this when we talked about it before, maybe I did, but they have the whatever they call it, the speed running thing with the Shine Spark now in Metroid Dread.
Oh, okay.
Which was not in Samus Returns. It was a thing that they introduced in Super Metroid, where you could run. I mean, it was a speed boost, I guess what it was called.
Yeah.
So they have the speed boost, and then after you start to boost, you kneel down, and then you can go flying off into the sky. Shine Spark. So that's a cool feature that I saw that they recently announced was in it. So I am very excited about Metroid Dread. And you know what? I figured out fairly recently that in order to do that, one of the difficult parts of Shine Sparking was going diagonally. Because it's really easy to just kneel and then you jump and you go straight up. But if you want to go diagonally, I always thought that you had to like push like up and right or up and left when you do the jump. But no, you apparently can use the trigger buttons, which normally aim your blaster up and down. Yeah. So if you use the trigger button and jump, you'll automatically go diagonally. Which I just found out, like after playing Super Metroid for a couple of decades, I only just found out like a year ago that you could do it that way.
I didn't know that, but I've also only ever played Super Metroid once. All the way through. And I don't know, I get why a lot of people love that version of the game. Like, particularly. It's probably the one I enjoy replaying the least. Like, I started to try to play it again not too long ago, and it's like, I'm not feeling it. Yeah. Like, I'd rather just go back and play, like, Zero Mission or something like that. And again, it's a newer game, so you'd expect it to be better in different ways. And Super Metroid's aged remarkably well. It's just, I don't enjoy it as much.
Yeah, it was the, third one, and really the second console Metroid.
Yeah.
And they fixed
and in many people's
things,
opinions, the first real Metroid.
Yeah. It still doesn't have a lot of the quality of life, and the controls are not as good as most people probably remember, because I've played it recently.
Yeah,
and it doesn't have things like grabbing onto ledges that was introduced in Zero Mission. It's not as good as people remember. I agree.
Yeah,
it's a great game, but it's not as good as some of the newer ones.
It's like, if there's any game I could just go back and replay any time, it's Zero Mission.
Yeah. That one's really good. I agree.
Yeah.
And frankly, Metroid Fusion, I find to be even better, sort of refined version of Zero Mission. Although it has its faults in terms of being a bit too linear. But as far as the gameplay is concerned, I feel like it's more refined.
Well, I think it's the best Metroid game, but I think because Zero Mission is basically
Fusion
just I think Fusion is the best Metroid game. It's a mild take. It's not too hot, but there's a lot of people who disagree with it. But like Zero Mission, I think the reason that's the most replayable one for me is because it is basically just the first game. It's just the best version of the first game, and the first game was designed around replayability, like everything about it, because of like the way the password system and saving worked in that game, that it was designed in a way, it's like, well, I mean, if you lose your password, we don't want it to be too long before you can get back to where you were anyway, so we need to make this almost like it's an arcade game. And then Zero Mission takes that map and everything about the game and then just kicks it up to 11. So it's a very replayable game compared to like any other Metroid game.
Yeah, definitely. I only wish that in the original they had given you the ability to refill your health faster.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I absolutely despise about the original. I love the original, but if you die or if you are really low on health, you have to sit there and kill things and kill things and kill things for like 20 minutes just to refill your health. It's great.
Yeah, and only like especially in the first area, it's like every fifth enemy might actually give you health.
Yeah, exactly. So you spend a lot of time at those little pipes where the little flying bugs come up and come at you, just killing them over and over and over. Like, why do I have to do this?
And honestly, because you hear different versions of it later in different games too, especially like maybe the best sounding version might be in the Prime games just because the audio engine's better. But there's nothing much more satisfying than hearing that ba 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 as you start up the game.
Yeah. Speaking of music, by the way, I have to say the music in Pokemon Fire Red is like lit.
Oh yeah.
The Cerulean, like I've heard the Cerulean City music like over and over the years without ever realizing where it came from. I had no idea. And I go into Cerulean City, I'm like, wait, I recognize that song.
Mm-hmm. They've used it in the anime a lot.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
And like in the if you've ever seen the is it College Humor or Dorkly?
Dorkly, yeah, they use it a lot.
YouTube.
Dorkly.
They use it like every Pokemon sketch they do. They use that song, at least the beginning of it. So I was like, well, I recognize that. I'm really surprised that a game as old as that. Now I don't know about the original Pokemon Red and Blue.
The original soundtrack is great. They actually didn't add any songs to the main campaign of Fire Red and Leaf Green. All the additional songs were added to the islands and stuff that were added to the game. Every route, the gyms all have the same background music when you enter them, but like every song that you've heard so far is just a new version of something that existed in the original game.
Yeah, that's amazing that they have a different song for every town.
Yeah.
And the routes and the caves and the gyms. Yeah. I'm just amazed that there's a different song for every town, and that's why I keep wondering, like, was this the way it was like in the original Pokemon Red? Because
you just got to hear the cooler versions of the songs, because the original was pretty good. It was very polyphonic. There's a lot of bings in there and stuff like that. While that version is the horn section of the band, because that's just how Pokemon was on the Game Boy Advance. Everybody makes fun of Hoenn, specifically Ruby and Sapphire, for being nothing but the brass section. And Fire Red and Leaf Green was pretty much the same way, but it was cool because you got to hear all these like classic songs brought into this kind of like really poppy version of the songs. It was cool.
Yeah. I did manage to beat Misty, and I got a Vulpix, which I love. I love the I really love the Ninetales, so I was excited to get a Vulpix.
Oh, Ninetales is great. Yeah.
Hasn't evolved yet.
Which you only get because of the version you're in.
What? There's no Vulpix in the original?
No, there's Vulpix in the original, depending on which version you're playing. Vulpix was in one game, Growlithe was in the other, and you had to trade to get it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's kind of the point. There were very few, but there were a couple Pokemon that you could only get in one game or the other, as per like the trading mechanic on it, because the whole point of the game was trading with other people. Was like a core mechanic to it. There's even certain Pokemon that you can only evolve through trade. Like Machoke will only become Machamp through trade. Or Haunter will only become Gengar through trade.
Yeah.
Yep. Pokemon did a lot of things in the very first game that they did that was like unheard of at the time. It was a very innovative game. And now people just take it for granted because it's like, oh, it's Pokemon. It's like, yeah, but turn back the clock and think about like what it was doing when it first came out and how weird that was for the game industry. Like, it was already weird enough that games were communicating with each other. That was a very uncommon thing. Like, the link cable already existed, but like the only thing I think the link cable was if you had like the Mario Brothers arcade game ported for Game Boy or whatever, you could play with each other directly. They were like very limited shit like that.
Yeah.
And like the Pokemon Team C is like, oh, we know how we can use this link cable. Give it to us. And, you know, like, so they're the first team to actually really make use out of the link cable for something interesting. You can battle each other directly and stuff like that. So that was new. The idea of, like, collecting units to do battle wasn't new. A lot of people tried to give that to Pokemon, but there were other games already doing that at the time. Not very successfully, but there were games doing it. They were probably one of the first ones to to do it in such a way that the goal was collecting things, right? It wasn't just like, oh, I need these monsters to do battle for me or enemies or whatever. The actual goal was I need to fill up this encyclopedia, so I have to go and collect every single one of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of things that like Pokemon did that nobody else was doing, and now we just fucking take it for granted. Especially with how many Pokemon clones are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like even Shin Megami
still...
Tensei kind of became a Pokemon clone in a way. Because even though you're not keeping the demons around, you're actually sacrificing them, you are still trying to fill up like your archive of all the demons you've captured, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I noticed later Final Fantasies, they have their bestiary where,
yeah.
you know, it has every creature has a number and everything. You try to fill it up. I've never filled a Final Fantasy bestiary ever.
I did on 4 Advanced. I fought every single enemy in that game.
Wow.
And it was a
I
pain in the butt.
don't think I have ever gone up against Wormek in the original Final Fantasy. I've
Really?
never run into him.
Never.
I don't think ever. No.
Wow.
I'll have to go back.
Wow.
Like I have save games. I have save games I could go back to and like just run across that bridge over and over until I run into one, but I've never bothered to do that.
More often than not, like, I don't know what my RNG is, but like I'll run into Wormek on the first try crossing that bridge every single time.
I never have. And I've probably crossed that bridge a dozen times.
No.
In various different versions of the game.
You kind of want to fight him though.
Never.
Like,
I kind of, but you know,
his rewards are great, so right? Like,
yeah,
he's a tough fight, but he's a fight that you can actually cheese under leveled, which is why I like a lot of speedrunners who sequence break go in there, because like you pretty much get all the experience you need to beat the game if you beat Wormek. So it's like, okay, sequence break, beat Wormek, go and do all the other things that you need to do.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know, weird RNG for me, I guess.
Yeah.
I just never...
But
I still can't figure out, like, when it says there's a 1 in 64 chance, does that mean you go across the bridge, like, every 64 times you go across the bridge, you'd expect to see him? Or is it 1 in 64 every step?
I'm trying to remember how the RNG works on that.
Yeah, I'll have to look it
I
up after.
want to say it is a loaded zone. Like, you know how like the RNG zones are in that game? Like where there's the Peninsula of Power where you can go and grind because it's dipping into a higher level area. I believe the bridge is its own zone, so you actually have to leave off the bridge and go back in. So I think it loads every time you enter the zone.
Oh. So basically, every 64 times you enter the zone,
you can expect it, but that's not guaranteed, right? Because it is 1 in 64 each time, so that just suggests that you should expect to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But you could still roll 2 through 64 every single time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's it for the show. We're at the end of it.
Yes, it is.
Thanks anybody for watching.
I'd say
here or in the future.
That was the best. I'd say that was the best show we've ever done.
I won it. Not even close.
Every show is the best show we've ever done. Just keeps getting better and better.
I would hope, but I've had some pretty remarkable shows on here so far. So the bar has been pretty high. But if you enjoyed the show, please share it with somebody else who might like it. And if you really enjoy the show, consider helping us out by donating to streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live to help out with our monthly hosting fees. As those watching live can see, it has been reset. And we are currently at 6.67% of what we need, the $30 every single month. And if we pass that, anything else is just kind of a bonus for helping out the show. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Insolent Earth scum. Insolent Earth scum. You dare to defy the rule of my Tsar. Now your actions have taken you too far. Clock is ticking, what were you thinking? Taking on the greatest power ever, now let it sink in. Your plan is ending, get to surrendering. No choice but an offer to impendent. All reveling the screams amid the rolling thunder as your earth becomes torn asunder.